Hello, I'm Kirsty Young, and this is a podcast from the Desert Island Discs archive. For rights reasons, we've had to shorten the music. The programme was originally broadcast in 1978, and the presenter was Roy Plumley.
Our castaway this week is the distinguished director and designer of plays and operas and films, Franco Zeffirelli. Signor Zeffirelli, what in the main has motivated your choice of 8 discs? Is it personal nostalgia or great performances? What?
Oh, I imagine is what you expect from me. Select these pieces because they meant something particular to me. Mm-hmm. They are associated with happy moments of my life and soothing the bad moments for me, and like only music and sound can do.
Are you a musician? Can you read a score?
Well, very badly. I mean, this has been one of the strange things in my career, because I've done a lot of opera. I've done about 46 new productions of opera. I work with the greatest singers and conductors.
What's the first record you've chosen?
The first thing comes to my mind is to save the voice of Maria Callas and the music written by Bizet. They are, to me, 2 pillars of opera ever. Callas is his dear friend who just left us, was what she was, and I don't need now to add anything to what people know about her or have said about her. Bizet is undoubtedly one of the greatest geniuses of the musical planet. Though I adore Verdi, I adore Bellini, Puccini, Donizetti, the greatest pillars of our operatic world, but Bizet to me means something very special.
La danse chance marie, d'abord indécise et timide, puis vite ensuite et plus rapide, c'est le monter, monter, monter,
Maria Callas as Carmen. Where did you learn your very fluent English?
It's a long story. I started when I was a child, practically. One of the ambitions of my father, who was a rather simple man. I mean, he was a businessman. He imported clothes from all over the world in Florence. He didn't know languages, and he suffered from that. So he said, my son must know languages. The first thing he has to learn, even if I have to sell my last jewel or ring or whatever he had, he has to learn languages. So he forced me at the age of 8 practically to go and learn French and English. Then there was the sanctions in 1935, 36, and English at the time was very much out of fashion. Mussolini put a veto.
Yes.
We could not speak English. So I forgot. And only when the war came and I crossed the lines and joined the army, your liberation. And I happened to be made prisoner by the 1st Regiment of Scotch Guards. And I could hardly speak English, but suddenly it all came back. In a matter of 1 week it came back, and as a matter of fact I remained with them as an interpreter.
Yes.
And since then I never stopped speaking English.
Now, your mother was a designer, wasn't she?
She was a fashion creator, actually. She had a great fashion business.
Was it that inspired you to go to art school?
No, my mother died. I was 6, and so she didn't have much influence in my later choices. But perhaps she, left me some kind of message in my very young mind that was perhaps the way to follow.
And after art school, you studied architecture?
I actually went to art school thinking of stage designing and architecture. And I studied architecture in Florence. Then the war came, interrupted the studies. And after the war, I joined the theatre. That was my strongest passion.
You had got mixed up with the theatre a little bit with the British forces, hadn't you?
Oh, yes. How do you know that?
What were they doing? What sort of theatre?
I remember I've been 2 months already with the British troops, and the regiment I was with had finally a leave. They had 15 days rest. So they were withdrawn from the front line, and they were sent back in a very pleasant villa near Siena. And they asked me if I could organize this stage and theatre for them. And I did a little masterpiece, apparently, because I remember at one point everything was ready. A few hours before the show began, captain of the Scotch Guards, and you wouldn't believe, is the great ballet expert and critic Richard Buckle. He was serving as a captain. He came there and looked at this. He said, "Who has done this?" It really was rather extraordinary. I used the camouflage nets and the back of the tracks. I created a real open-air theatre. Mm. And I was introduced to him, and he said, "Well, you must watch this boy, because I'm sure you are going to have a career." And then I met him later at Covent Garden, and he said, I know. I told you."
So that was the end of architecture. You joined a theatre company.
Yeah, that was just
You started as an actor.
Yeah, as
How
an
long
actor.
did
I
that?
was doing everything, I think when you are young, you must do everything until you find, with women, you must go with a lot of women, and then you select the one which is right for you.
Right. And it was during that acting period that you met Visconti, who was to have a great influence on you.
Yeah, tremendous, yes. I worked as an actor with him, then as designer. I assisted Salvador Dali, who designed quite an extraordinary... As You Like It. And then the following year, Visconti gave me the chance of designing a show, which was the first Italian production of Streetcar named Desire. And that's how I started.
At which point, let's have your next record. What's it to be?
I like to hear, well, that's another appointment you cannot miss. I mean, Beethoven is Beethoven. We can't think of being in any island, forgotten island, without hearing some of his music every now and then. And the one that particularly moves me and soothes me and really brings back peace in my heart whenever I'm nervous or tired is the Adagio from the Ninth Symphony.
The opening of the third movement of the Beethoven Ninth Symphony, Karajan conducting the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. You began in opera, of course, as a designer.
No, a designer began, as I said to you, As You Like It, and then Troilus and Cressida, always with Visconti. But the first opportunity as a director I had from opera. In La Scala, because La Scala called me after having seen my works as a designer. They called me to design an opera by Rossini, the Italiana in Algeri. And in those years, I wanted very badly to switch from designing to directing. They said, "I'll do it only if I can also direct." They said, "Well, never do it. The designer also directs, but if you insist, all right." So they gave me the opportunity of designing and directing my first production in La Scala, which was quite, for me, a tremendous
starting at the top.
Starting really at the top, and it was a great success. And then I did Cenerentola, then I specialized in Rossini's operas, then I did Il Turco in Italia with Maria Callas. That's the first time I worked with her. in 1955.
What was your first overseas engagement?
The first overseas engagement was in Dallas, Texas. I went there and produced again Italiano Leggeri and Traviata with Callas in 58.
Then you came and did a rejuvenation job at Covent Garden. Some of our productions were very old indeed at that time.
They're old now, too. My productions at Covent Garden are getting very old and tired, too.
Why don't I?
It's the fate, the destiny of time.
Oh, there was a very distinguished list of 8 or 9 of them you did in the late 50s or early 60s, and most of them, as you say, are still in use.
I spend my happiest days in opera on the stage of Covent Garden.
There was that
I'm
memorable
so
Tosca you did with
this,
Maria Callas and Tito Gobbi.
Yes, it was a wonderful evening, yes. Wonderful.
And you worked several times with Joan Sutherland?
Actually, we practically made our debut together. She was quite unknown when we staged together the Lucia.
Yes.
It was my debut and her debut. Actually, debut, at least she had been singing for quite a while, but never had this kind of tremendous opportunity of being able to sing that kind of piece.
And, of course, she did Handel's Alcina.
We did Handel and Puritani, yes.
Yes. Alcina, a very small opera, but you made it a very big opera.
Well, I think we succeeded in making it very entertaining. Which is, normally Handel is considered with reverence, and in the end comes out as a very boring author. He's not at all.
Your critics have accused you of overdoing it, of being too elaborate, of overwhelming the musical side with the spectacle. Do you think that's ever been justified?
I don't know. You should ask the audience, not the critics.
That's good sense. Let's have another record.
Well, I think, as we've just talked about, that marvelous moment of my life when we opened with Lucia, the 11th of February 1959 at Covent Garden. And we were, both Sutherland and myself, rocketed to the sky like new stars. And we held hands together during tremendous ovations that followed the end of that opera, that marvelous evening. And I'd like to remember here with you the great moment of the mad scene, sung superbly by John Sutherland.
Joan Sutherland as Lucia di Lammermoor. Now, your work in the Straight Theatre, many plays in Italy, of course. Your first production in English was at the Old Vic, I think.
Yes, it was. Actually, it took me by total surprise. I never directed any play ever in my life, let alone Shakespeare in English. So when my dear friend Michael Bentel, who died a few years ago, wonderful man, he called me. I was in Milano rehearsing La Scala, a new piece, and he called me. I didn't know him. He said, "I'm Michael Bentel, Old Vic, etc., etc. We'd like you to direct for us next year a new production of Romeo and Juliet." And I thought, absolutely, I was convinced it was a joke of some friends of mine in London. So I said, all right, only for the Queen, ask me to do it, I will do it. And I hung up the telephone. And then Michael wrote me a letter immediately after, in which he said, no, it's really serious. In fact, there was the Old Vic paper and so on. So I couldn't believe my luck, and I was taken by fright, total panic. How can I do it? And then I say a little prayer. And during the night, I made a wonderful dream that I would have had a great success. So
and you did, indeed. It was a sensation. And since then, you've directed several Shakespeare plays in Italian.
And in English, too.
Yeah, oh, yes. Othello at Stratford.
Othello at Stratford, Sir John Gielgud, and Much Ado About Nothing in the National Theatre again.
Yes.
But I did Hamlet in Italy, and I did another production of Romeo and Juliet in Italy, which toured the world.
And at the National Theatre, you did a modern Italian play by Edoardo De Filippo, Saturday, Sunday and Monday, with Laurence Olivier and Joan Playwright. Great problems, you think, in teaching English actors brought up in the tradition of Gerald du Maurier to act with their hands, to speak with their hands in the Italian manner?
I deny that the qualification of the English actor. English actors can really do anything they want, if they want it. So I had no problem. Actually, if there was a problem, it was to restrain the participation to this new experience. Fortunately, I had already been through that company, through Much Ado About Nothing, where really we unleashed all the Italian style, Italian gags, Italian characterizations. So when it came down to Eduardo's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I had no problem making them look and sound Italian. Perhaps even too much, I don't know. But the play was a kind of gallery of very wild characters. It's quite different from the play I just put on now, the lyric.
Filomena.
Right. Filomena is by the same author, but this is a very serious play. Though there is that blend of humor and tears that is so typical of Eduardo, and it's what makes him so likable by the English. I mean, the English audience are very grateful to him because he gives them both colors and he knows superbly how to blend them. But this is a very serious play.
Record number 4.
You'll be surprised. I like very much contemporary music, especially the music of the young people. And I think if I look back at, because I've seen developing this kind of music, as I remember distinctly when it started, and I think one of the turning points has been the arrival on our radios and our television, the great group, the Platters. I can never live without hearing every now and then, Only You.
Only you can make all this change in me. For it's true, you are my destiny. When you hold my hand, I understand.
The Platters. Now, you had worked in your days with Visconti on several films with him, hadn't you?
Yes, I did, I think 3 films. The most beautiful experience in my life was being his assistant in La Terra Trema. It was a film we shot in Sicily with fishermen and real people, no actors.
And you also worked with De Sica.
I did a short episode with him, a second assistant, and with Visconti again, Senso, and the film with Magnani, Bellissima.
The first film on your own was The Taming of the Shrew.
No, I had done a little film, a lousy little picture, but very funny and very amusing. We enjoyed doing it in 1958. It was called Camping. It made a lot of money, actually, but, wasn't exactly in the beginning of a career.
No, the beginning of the career was obviously The Taming of the Shrew. You went to the Renaissance painters for the visual side of that.
Well, it was inevitable, I'm afraid. It took place in Padua, and we recreated this legendary Padua. It was entirely rebuilt in the studios. It had a kind of artificial, very near a theatrical experience. I didn't want to risk much. You know, the first time I approached this new medium, I wasn't really that young, and I had already a reputation. I didn't want to, to risk too much. And also because I thought that Shakespeare on the screen is always a tremendous source of ideas and inspiration. And that particular piece was perfectly suitable for those two monsters, Taylor and Burton,
yes,
who really did it, I think, very well.
But
I wanted to prove immediately after that Shakespeare could also be something else. And so a year later, I picked up 2 unknowns and brought them to the attention of the world audience with Romeo and Juliet. I dealt with it in an entirely different key.
2 English teenagers.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Olivia Hussey and Leonard Whiting.
And you did the same thing for Brother Sun, Sister Moon, the story of St. Francis of Assisi. You found 2 unknowns.
Oh, yes. They were all newcomers, new English.
And you took on that daunting assignment, the story of Jesus for television. 6 hours, was it not?
Yeah, well, yes. Yes, it was. It scared me. There again, I said a little prayer, and one night I dreamt it would have been a great success.
Another record, please.
Oh, another record. Now, wait a minute. I wouldn't go on a desert island without bringing with me the most extraordinary voice of any actor ever, Sir Laurence Olivier, Lord Olivier, in memorable, unforgettable messages left to us in his early Henry V from the film. It was absolutely berserk when I saw it. I must have seen it 5 or 6 times.
And you, good yeomen, whose limbs were made in England, show us here the mettle of your pasture. Let us swear that you are worth your breeding, which I doubt not, for there is none of you so mean and base that hath not noble luster in your eyes. I see you stand like greyhounds in the slip, straining upon the start. The game's afoot. Follow your spirit, and upon this charge, cry God for Harry, England and St. George!
The voice of Laurence Olivier. Have you any professional ambitions still unfulfilled? One play you want to get your teeth into?
One play?
Yes.
I'd like to get my teeth into.
Or one opera?
Operas.
Or one film subject you've never been able to set up?
Yes, there is one film I would like to do. And I will do one day. Is Dante's Inferno.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to do it.
You've tried to set that up before?
Yeah, but I wasn't lucky in the setup. I have something I want to do one day. That's the film. Plays, there are so many, one more beautiful than the other. I would like to do Three Sisters by Chekhov. I like to do many plays. There are many Shakespeares I haven't done yet. I would like to do a Troller's Cressida again. I love it.
Back to music. What now?
Yes. There is one piece which I really like to hear over and over again. It's a Gregorian chant. It's one of the most gentle and sweet and beautiful. And it's called Salve Regina. It's a prayer to the Virgin. And it reminds me of the many times I went to church with my mother or my elders and heard this beautiful hymn. I'd like to hear it again.
Salve Regina, sung by the choir of the Benedictine Abbey of Santo Domingo de Silos. Now, you design scenery. Could you build it? And you can cleat something together on your desert island to make a shelter, can you?
I told you about what I did in the rest camp during the war. It was practically done with nothing. Camouflage tents, flowers, branches, and it was done with rocks. Mm-hmm. So I presume I'll make a marvelous, beautiful, inventive work with the natural material I would find on that island.
Would you try to escape?
I don't know. It depends what I find there, what I can create there, if I can adjust to it. If I can adjust to it, I will never escape.
Right. Record number 7 now.
Now, you'll be surprised. There is one piece that really has impressed me, I'll never forget, because I happened to be there when it was launched and exploded. I don't know if you remember at the end of the 50s. The famous Peppermint Lounge in New York, Chubby Checker launching the twist.
Come on, let's twist again, like we did last summer. Yeah, let's twist again, like we did last year. Do you remember when things were really humming? Yeah, let's twist again, twist the time is here. Round and up and down we go again.
Chubby Checker, let's twist again. I've forgotten how to do it.
Oh, I can't tell you, it was such a furore when it happened. I happened to be in New York on my way from Dallas, and we went there, guess with whom? With Maria Callas and Leonard Bernstein, because we were ashamed, they were very ashamed to go in that kind of place, so they disguised themselves, and as soon as we entered, we couldn't enter. Nobody recognized Bernstein. He was quite furious, because he was dressed like a truck driver. Finally, somebody recognized him, and we could go in. And there, in a corner, up on the ladder, was Greta Garbo. So I tell you what. And we all wanted to dance, but we couldn't. We didn't have the trick. Then finally, Lenny called one of these dancers and said, "Come with us," because we can't go around in the world today without knowing how to dance a twist. So a whole night in front of a mirror, the four of us trying to twist, and finally Maria shouted, "I got it! I've got it! I've got it!"
Now, your last record, what's that?
I think the Overture of Barbaro Seville.
Why?
By Rossini. Because it makes me happy, the music of Rossini. It cheers me up. No matter how gloomy or depressed I can be or tired, I hear his music and the sun shines again.
The NBC Symphony Orchestra playing the Overture to the Barbaro of Seville, conducted by Arturo Toscanini. If you could take just one of the 8 discs you've played to us, which would it be?
I think I'll keep the team Callas Bizet with me.
Right, comment. And one luxury to have with you?
Can it be perfume?
We can be perfume, certainly.
Because I imagine through what you said, there are no good scents in that island unless you bring some good seeds from abroad. Well, I'll take my perfume, yes. Hammam Bouquet, made by Penhaligon in London.
Right. A large flacon. And one book, apart from that little list that we have put aside, the Bible and Shakespeare and big encyclopedias.
Well, as the real treat, I'll ask you to give me a good edition of War and Peace, Tolstoy.
And thank you, Franco Zeffirelli, for letting us hear your Desert Island discs.
Thank you very much. This is a very pleasant chat. I wish we could continue. And thank
time.
you very much for your patience.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
You've been listening to a podcast from the Desert Island Discs archive. For more podcasts, please visit bbc.co.uk/Radio 4.